Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm Steven Conway. Grateful to be back. With me, of course, Jeremy Finestone. And big thanks, by the way, to Paul Fontaine. Thank you very much, sir, for filling in for me last week while I was away on vacation, but I have returned. And we had a heck of a good Battle in the Valley show that you, Jeremy Finestone, personally attended. How you feeling after watching what turned out to be a great night of wrestling?
I had so much fun. I was very, very tired the next day. I did a show that night with Garrett Gonzalez on his Double G show. I then jumped on the Power Bomb shows the next morning and talked a little bit about the show there. And then I saved a lot of it for this show because, this is kind of our meat and potatoes kind of thing. And got a bunch of stories from the weekend and really just ready to unpack it all because we got a lot of stuff moving forward based off of what we've already seen come and go.
After finishing up Wrestle Kingdom, of course, the New Year's Dash, this show here feels a little bit more like we're getting the momentum moving again. If Wrestle Kingdom is a season finale, this is the season premiere, and we're starting to get into setting up the storylines we're going to see. And there's a lot to be excited about. And Colin's here. Colin, good to see you again here. You missed the last couple that I was on, some there. And Venkin's all excited. We already know we're getting a big main event in Chicago. So much to talk about. We're going to get into Battle in the Valley, break all that down. Jeremy's got a lot to tell us about that show. We're going to be talking about the New Beginning Tour, which is starting up Saturday. We have New Beginning in Nagoya, some big matches that are sprinkled out rather than have one major super card in here. We have some really interesting matches that are spread out throughout this tour. Fantasticamania is coming. And if we have a little time, we're going to finally get to talk about Killer Khan a little bit because he just kind of got lost in the shuffle there with his passing with Wrestle Kingdom. So, Jeremy, just overall, big crowd on hand, and it's something we're going to discuss when it comes to Chicago. They announced the main event, Will Ospreay versus Kazuchika Okada. They announced a couple of other matches beforehand, and it worked. Got a good crowd there in San Jose at the Civic Center. And can you tell us a little bit about the atmosphere going into the building? I know the merchandise line was unworldly.
You want to know about the atmosphere of the show? Yeah, I got atmosphere for you. So,
what do we got here?
This is the merch line from the San Jose Civic.
Oh my God! Is that a U that's curling around?
That is one line wrapped around the entire side of the building. It's the bottom floor of the 2-story building, completely wrapped around. I'm like, I'm gonna take a picture of this and then do that. So in San Jose, the Civic is right across from the San Jose Convention Center, and this weekend at the San Jose Convention Center was FurCon.
Yes.
Further used, which I never knew was what FurCon meant. And I found that out when I walked past the display, and I was like, oh, this is going to be an adventure. This is going to be an adventure this weekend. And so it actually kind of spilled into the show as Walker Stewart revealed later on, if you're ready for this.
Okay. I'm going to read this out loud. I'll read this out loud for the podcast, folks. This is a tweet from an X, whatever they call him now, from Walker Stewart. There was a furry convention next to the San Jose Civic yesterday. El Phantasmo and Hikuleo wanted some of the furries to accompany them for their entrance. They all said no. It's funny you'd think they'd been interested in doing so with the way that ELP and Hikuleo got that dog in them. I imagine they were probably worried they were going to be made fun of, but nevertheless, an opportunity missed.
Have you ever encountered furries in real life or know anyone who is in that likes to be a furry or identifies as a furry?
Yes, I have.
You don't fuck with them. You do not. They will not put up with your shit. And they're probably lucky that it's probably because Hikuleo was 7 feet tall that they didn't get to a fight with them about him. But the furries just want to be left alone. And I ran into a couple. I said hello. I got out of their way, and they just kept walking right past me. And I was like,
cool. It's its own subgenre for sure. But there you have it.
It was a great story. I was like, I walked past the building, like, oh, there's gonna be something to this at that. And then I was like, no, not much. And then I saw the tweet. I'm like, there it is.
Flaming Shark is here. He said, by the way, he said he enjoyed Battle in the Valley in person a lot. So you were both there, and really hyped for the New Beginning tour. He also says you never buy merch at a wrestling show. He said, my only exception was waiting for a Rampage taping as part of a Dynamite to get a Jay White cardboard cutout. Yeah, the lines are usually pretty nasty. And when I
saw that merch line, it wasn't that, I saw the merch that they offered. I was like, I saw an email blast that came out the same day. I was like, I'd rather buy all that stuff that was online rather than what they were selling on the show.
Now, when I was a little kid, they had the mail order, the WWF catalog. When I grew up, WWF was the only company that came to town. So that was the live wrestling I got to see. And that was in the mid 80s. And you would have to go to the line in order to get your stuff, or you would have to mail in a check and your order that you would get out of WWF magazine and wait 6 to 8 weeks. By that time, somebody might have turned heel by that. You're not even sure you could wear that shirt after that long. So
I went to a Raw taping, a WWE Raw taping, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe two or 1 or 2, yeah. And it was Bloodline were there. And they had a pilot program they were doing where you could go to a website that was only usable inside the arena, buy the stuff there, and then go to a kiosk where they had your bag ready for what you purchased without ever sitting in a merch line.
Nice.
And I was like, damn, that's great. And then I looked for it the last time I went to Raw, and they didn't have that. I'm like, oh, technology was so good. We can't have nice things.
Flaming Shark says, I saw a bunch of furries when I was coming in, interacted with a few. Funny how New Japan had a sold-out show, but they were definitely number 2 in San Jose that night.
Yes, they were.
It was a big turnout for the furries as well as New Japan.
In the San Jose Convention Center, that's where the WrestleMania access was when San Jose was doing the WrestleMania. So just a huge plaza in the middle of downtown San Jose. And I live a couple blocks away from there. I didn't realize there was a convention. I'm like, I'm far enough away that conventions don't bother me. But at the same time, like, I'm in walking distance of it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Man. Well, all right. So, interesting evening before we even get to the matches. So,
but I got to spend some time with Walker Stewart before the show.
Friend of the show.
Managed to finagle him and Dave Meltzer and Garrett for dinner. I got to meet. We all got to talk, and he was just a really smart, bright guy. And I just wanted to throw that in there because there's going to be a couple of anecdotes I wanted to throw in there. I don't want to start that story, and just kind of throw that in there. He was really great on Friday, and it was a pleasure to meet him.
Well, that's very cool. And I did like the show was terrific. There was good wrestling up and down. I also like the way they are beginning to present these United States shows, in that they are beginning to lead to the next one. They aren't just self-contained units. A lot of things happen on this show that is going to mean something going forward, and that could be in Japan, but a lot of it is for the next show in the United States, is Windy City Riot in Chicago in April. What I like about that is a problem that New Japan has run into in the United States is the way they book their matches. They keep it very, very kayfabe. Until a match happens, they don't really announce the next one. The issue is fans in the United States want to know who they're going to see and against whom. And they've tried to do things like these people will appear. They did that in Texas. And I went to that show. It was a good show, but it didn't draw that well. It was barely 1,000 people in that building right there. And Las Vegas did.
Trust that you're to get them in just the tag instead of like a prioritized main event match.
This time they told us what the main event was. They sold tickets, and they seem to have learned that these markets are different. You can do this in Japan. It's kind of understood when you're a wrestling fan that that's how it's going to be. But this time we know several of the matches, the 2 that are officially announced, others that have been so strongly hinted I'd be shocked if they didn't happen, for Chicago, meaning there is some continuity here instead of here's this little event, you get to see all the guys, then they go back to Japan and maybe you see them again. Now there's a little bit of continuity to these shows that I think is going to help, and we've seen results, strong ticket sales coming up for this Chicago Windy City Riot show. So imagine that, Jeremy. Put on a good show, tell people you're going to see good matches next time, they show up. Go figure.
Do you think that Windy City will lead into Forbidden Door more than any of the New Japan shows in Japan?
Yeah, I think this might be a sign of success. I mean, I think they might do that, and I think they might do more than just the Forbidden Door too. I mean, there could be another NJPW Strong, because they want.
I'm thinking 4 big events just concentrate on 4 big events all around like the continental United States, like West Coast, Midwest, like New York, and like the South, like big shows, like advertise from piggyback from one show to the next kind of thing. And then, you know, when it comes around to next January, and hopefully they come back to San Jose or something like that, you know, there's a bigger sense of anticipation because you have been conditioned to know that they are setting stuff long term, even when they're stateside.
Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping so. I would like the idea that they visit different parts of the country, mostly because I live in this, Texas, and I would like to see more of that. I can't really say a whole lot because the fans didn't show up really in Garland all that much. There was only about 1,000 people there. But again, maybe this new approach will help.
I'm very excited for Windy City Riot based off of what we saw. Real quick, we look like we have a bunch of comments.
We do.
I'm going to do the whole spiel about likes and subscribes. If you like our show, if you like the Fight Game Media platform, we have a new fightgamemedia.com that you can go check out where all of our audio and video is posted. In addition to that, if you like what you see, click share, subscribe, heart, emojis, all the things, comments. We appreciate it all. Thank you for the continued support. And I'm going to pass it back on to Steven for more conversation.
Yeah, and for the podcast folks, please rate us, leave us a review. It helps people find the show. So let's get to some of these comments here. Colin mentions that I heard there was still trouble with the audio during the show. Is that right? I'll tell you what, Colin, I was still on a cruise ship when this show happened, so I watched it Sunday, but I only had the Japanese feed on NJPW World to deal with. I didn't have the English one. NJPW World's Japanese feed was done from Japan remotely. The announcers were not in San Jose. What that meant was it was a very muffled crowd sound, and I'm not totally sure what the reactions in the building always were. I got the commentary from the main announcer, and I believe El Desperado. They never show them, when they're doing it remotely like that. So I think it was Desperado on it, which was enjoyable in some parts because during parts of the Moxley match, he was just laughing through it, like cackling. There were other things they were laughing through. I'm trying to remember what there were a couple of times when something would just happen and they just cracked up, and it wasn't meant to be comedy. It wasn't. They weren't trying to be funny in the show right there, but there were a few things on there that they just found to be hilarious. But so that
I did get the English commentary. I watched about 70% of it because I watched it live, but I realized neither of us had the English commentary. I'm like, well, I should probably jump into this, and I got about 70% of the show, and same audio issues that hit every New Japan broadcast in the stateside. Some of it is tinny, some of the lighting is a little wacky, some of the angles are weird. Still competent for the most part. There wasn't like a 30-minute delay like there was in the San Jose show last year, but it's not what was advertised. Not what was advertised as the progressive New Japan World upgrades that we thought we were going to get.
Well, let's get into that real quick, because Colin mentions this. Can we also discuss why they don't do full show videos anymore on the updated NJ site? Watching Wrestle Kingdom was a nightmare. Seriously thinking about unsubbing. Well, I hate to hear that. When I watch them, if I watch the first match, yes, they are on individual videos, but mine will then move to the second match automatically. I don't have to back out and choose the second match. Like when that first match video ticks down to 3, 2, 1, I get a circle for like a second or two, and then the next video comes up. Sometimes I don't even realize that it's transitioned to the next match. So no, there isn't one that's just the full event video. But for me, it's still, I mean, if you're watching live, it's like that because they haven't divided it up yet. But watching archive stuff, it does flow, I think, fairly well, but maybe it doesn't for Colin. I don't know. Have you had any trouble with that, Jeremy, as far as seeing one match move to the next match on the new World?
If you end up watching a show at any point out of order, it can play chaos. I've also noticed that the New Japan World, if you're not on an Apple native device, is not ideal. So I have switched to Apple native devices. Otherwise, like backing out of shows, the Apple freeze, and there have been updates for the app already. I I just run the show usually all the way through and then fast forward to the end of the segment if I need to. And there's no gaps missing in the show. It literally just like they put a stop, pause, and it's right back to the show. The only real frustration I have is not knowing the exact length time of a show when I start in on it because they're not telling me anywhere. And you kind of have to figure that part out. But I have had minimal issues because of being on Apple devices, but I've seen the problems outside on a Fire Stick and a Roku, and I'm not into it at all.
Yeah, it's been frustrating. It's been a difficult rollout. As what does he refer to them as mice in the machinery? Well, those mice have set up shop pretty good right there, and there have been some real problems. So I can only hope that their techs are working on it. I certainly don't know how to fix it. That's not my area of expertise, but hopefully they're able to get some things done right there. Let's look at some other comments. Flaming Shark still, the Strong shows are pretty much fully canon now, not just semi-canon like they were for a while. That's a fair point. A lot of this stuff, you could skip NJPW Strong, and it really wouldn't affect what you were seeing in Japan. It's not true anymore, and I think that helps too. I agree. And he said, yeah, just straight giving 2 huge matches for Chicago was smart. Yeah, I mean, tell the people what they're going to see. Yeah, absolutely. Venkin says, I like that they have CMLL and AEW people on these, and boy, they added a lot to this show. And he also mentions Chicago's going to love Jack Perry. I think everybody's going to love Jack Perry. I think he's going to be a pretty effective heel here. We'll see.
Stupid punk kid.
Yeah, I know it. And I tell you, he also says, has anyone heard these Forbidden Door rumors?
Kid.
We'll see. Flaming Shark says, as far as locations for these shows, California, Chicago, New York, and maybe Florida. And then he was nice enough to throw in, or Texas for Steven. Thank you, Shark. I appreciate that. I'd love to not have to go to Florida.
Pal, or my buddy Garrett, and mutual friend Andrew Therian. I would call him a friend. I've met him a few times. They discussed Forbidden Door. And Therian did not outright say, but he suggested it would be very easy for him to attend that show. And so if it was going to be very easy for him to attend the show, I would assume it is somewhere in the New York area.
Okay.
Nothing guaranteed, but that was a conversation had elsewhere.
A lot of buildings in the New York area you could go to. So there are a lot of choices. Both in New Jersey, too, if you're just talking New York Metro. So
do you think they do it at Arthur Ashe?
It depends on the time of year. I mean, Arthur Ashe is a possibility. There are a lot of big buildings there.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go a lot of places. And there's several NHL, NBA arenas that you could go to, any one of which would be good. Madison Square Garden is always a possibility, but it's also always really expensive. It's more expensive than any other arena because of the union rules in Manhattan for the workers and the employees. So it becomes very expensive to run Madison Square Garden. WWE sucks it up and does it around the holidays and other times just because they're WWE and it's their spiritual home, so to speak, in the same way that Sumo Hall is for New Japan. But the other companies have done it. Have done it. Obviously, New Japan did it along with Ring of Honor. So
2018.
But there's also there's Barclays. There's the Nassau Coliseum. There's a lot of places up there. So
I'm going to say it's the AEW event at Arthur Ashe this year. I think they're going to go big because Forbidden Door always gets people there.
That'd be good. Shark says, I'd still prefer if they gave us individual matches in a single file.
Yes.
On World. But I haven't had issues with it. But I just watch on the website on my computer.
I would agree 100% that if they could just say, do you prefer to watch it all the way through? They give you the speed. They give you the version, whether you want to watch English or Japanese. If you want to have like one full run through like version of the thing, I would love that as a workaround in the future.
So it's a fair criticism, Colin. I'm sorry you're having so much trouble with it. Really, I know how much you want to watch and how much you love the product. It has been frustrating, hasn't it? Because the archives are coming through slowly and slower than I'd like as somebody who likes to go back and watch old stuff. So, Jeremy, should we start breaking down this Battle in the Valley show?
Do it.
20 minutes in, that's not too bad. There were a lot to talk about.
We were bullshitting. There was fun stuff in there.
It began with 2 quote-unquote dark matches, although they were on the broadcast, so they're not really dark, but they were pre-show matches, so to speak. We had Matt Vandegrift and Goldie. These are a couple people from the NJPW Academy. And it's fine. 450 splash finish, perfectly good match. Vandegrift, the issue with Vandegrift is his hair, isn't it? I mean, he's got that kind of thinning hair. It looks like he's losing it. It's not the most it's not the best pro wrestling look, although he has a good build and he's a capable wrestler. I think the look in there needs a little bit of work, but nothing wrong with this match. A couple of Academy guys, and Vandegrift has shown that he's probably the most advanced of the current Academy guys that we've seen.
I looked at this image while it was on the screen, and I looked at the wrestler and the thing, and I was like, okay. And it was fine. The best thing I can say is it felt like it was something I would watch on an NXT breakout tournament. Just kind of a very simple elementary match. Near the end, the amount of time it took for people to take a bump, sell the bump, make the next move, labor to the finish was half of a match in and of itself. And so they definitely decompressed several parts of this match to just get through the elementary parts. It was fine. I wasn't really impressed, but I wasn't supposed to be impressed. It was just kind of, a pre-show match.
This guy's getting reps. Yeah.
Yeah.
After that, we had Stephanie Vaquer, who is really coming along, really doing well in Mexico, and has shown up, of course, faced Mayu Iwatani, has faced, various. She was against Mercedes in that match, right, in the tournament. Anyway, she's had some good stuff, and she defeated Viva Van in 9 minutes 55 seconds. The one part about this is Viva wasn't ready for this level yet, and Vaquer did what she could, but what you saw with Viva is something that happens with everybody, is that at the beginning of your career, you're counting the steps, and you can see him counting the steps. All right, I got to be here, and then I'm going to do this, and it's not flowing yet. Everything has a kind of, all right, now I am supposed to grab her arm. Now I'm supposed to take her to the ropes, and you can kind of see those step countings happen as the match, and all that stuff comes with time. Your favorite wrestler in the world did that early in their career. So I would like to see Viva Van, if they do Battle in the Valley next year in 2025, and have her in a match again, see how far she's come. The cover's not bare with her. She seems strong. She seems like she was perfectly capable. A little early for this thing, and maybe next year we could see somebody totally different.
I hope so. I actually liked watching this match in the ring. I thought Vaquer was really crisp, and it was meant to be a spotlight match for her in a lot of ways. And there was a lot of felt like there was a lot of CMLL-ness to the match.
Sure, because Vaquer was leading it.
Yeah. And the rope spider move that Viva Van did, and the running knees with the attempts that Vaquer did a number of times until she finally hit it. And then once she did, it was pretty much lights out for Viva Van. Like, told a simple story, and I liked it. And I felt like, if we're heating her up to take a title potentially from somebody else on this card, definitely could have had a worse performance. She was great. She was fine.
And Venkin mentions how much chance do you think Vaquer is beating Julia? She's certainly one of the leading contenders. My personal preference would be for them to combine the title with Iwatani's, but we'll see what they do with it. Colin says, I'm not a big fan of Vaquer beating Julia for the strong belt. She's already lost one chance to win it. Shouldn't be getting another one so soon. There just aren't a lot of choices right now as far as people stateside go. And so it would either has to be someone from Stardom where they do it that way, or they combine the belts, which is kind of my preference to narrow the titles down, because I don't think you need both. But
they've already listed Vaquer as the next contender for the title.
Well, so sure, but keep in mind, Julia's not leaving. She's leaving Stardom, but she's not necessarily leaving for some place where you have to be exclusive for another year. They have all year to get that title off of her if they want to do something with it.
Right now they do, but that doesn't mean that come March or April that suddenly the clock is ticking. And so my question is not whether... Okay, there's two things that I'm looking at here. First, is she the one to beat Julia and take the title? Does it happen in Chicago? Okay. Sure, if it does, yes, then we already know where we're going. If not, you basically, you have to eat somebody else up, which you haven't done. You could do the Mayu Iwatani thing, which doesn't seem like they're particularly interested in doing anything with either, so we shall see. But if you don't, you basically have to create a tournament, and you've removed the viability from Vaquer if you have her lose, and then Julia basically vacates the title. So it's not that you want Victor to win. It's like you want to protect the promotion and you want to protect the wrestlers and you want to protect the lineage. As much as like you put it out there, you got to do something with it.
I'm very curious to see what they do with the IWGP belt that Iwatani has, just because I've always advocated that the strong belt can be the one that's in the States. And the IWGP one should be the one that's defended once in a while on Stardom, but mostly on the big New Japan. I know that hasn't happened, but I think there's also a reason that Taro Okada was put in a director's position in both companies by Bushiroad. And I think it's to build a better bridge between Stardom and New Japan. My optimism is hoping that there is more of a synergy between the two that wasn't there before when unpopular people were running each company. But all that's changed in the last few months. So I'm hoping we can see more of that. Tanahashi was very enthusiastic after Historic Crossover about the women there. Of course, he's going to say that. You know,
and we still have that show. It's still going to happen this year.
So there's some interesting things there that could be done. So if they wanted to start doing that and having the Stardom wrestlers maybe show up a little bit more, which is what we were all hoping for on New Japan shows, then they could do that with Iwatani's belt. And Iwatani's a bigger name over there. And then they could do this here, perhaps. Or like Dunstan Williams just says, merge the two belts. Exactly. That's kind of what. But yeah, let's see what we got here. Dunstan G says just got off work. Well, I'm glad you joined us. Thank you for making us part of your day. Stephanie should win and just be a new talent in Stardom since they're losing talent as well. Well, that's a thought, isn't it? The next batch of foreign talent to join Club Venus or whoever else in there is going to be really fascinating. I don't know if CMLL wants to give up Vaquer because she's doing really well over there. We're also going to be seeing some CMLL women in Fantasticamania for the first time that I'm aware of. Venkin says, I'm curious what is main eventing the next Historic Crossover. I think we all are. And then Colin is also up for merging the belt. I mean, I think most of the people on this show that watch it, listen to it, and us, the two of us that host it, are kind of in the ideas that the less is more when it comes to title belts, but we're just not in that era of wrestling, are we? We're just kind of stuck with it. So I've made my peace with the idea that there are more belts than I want there to be. But so if they're going to do it, I just hope they do it in a way that differentiates the two titles.
You got to have that action figure accessory, my man.
Let's go on to the first match of the main card. Okay. One more thing from Shark before we move on. Of course, we all want the IWGP Women's title to be the one New Japan belt, but whether they do that or not, who knows? Yeah, well, that's what we're saying.
They don't care, so they're not going to.
I mean, I'm not sure. Let's see what these new administrations do, because there are new guys in charge, and there is somebody that's in with both companies. I really think we could be.
I think we're going to be having the same conversation in 6 months that we're having right now, with like let's hold out hope that they have better plans for this. Once we get to Historic X Over, and that's probably going to be the crux point, is Historic X Over 2, when they do that, to make any decision about what they're doing. If they wanted to do Mayu and Stephanie Vaquer there, that probably makes a way more sense than doing it at a strong show stateside. So until we get to that point where like we're at Historic X Over, which feels like that big moment that IWGP comes together, I don't know, man. It's just, I feel like we're going to be running in circles on that one.
Vaquer has mentioned defending her title against Mayu in Arena Mexico too, by the way. That could happen. So, which would also be very exciting. Moving on. We started with a 6-man tag that was a blast. So it was Shota Umino, No Days Off Red Roster, and Jacob Fatu, who was probably the star of this show, against Team Filthy, Tom Lawler, Royce Isaacs, and Jarrell Nelson. Now, this one only went 9 minutes, but there was a lot to it. There was a dissension whole thing we know that Team Filthy is on the way to a ugly breakup, but there was this dissension with Lawler's team. They didn't want to tag him, that type of thing. And then what we had was Jacob Fatu. The match was good. I mean, all these guys were good. Jacob Fatu, good Lord. Once he tagged in. Now, he's from the area to begin with anyway, but everyone was kind of excited to see what this guy would do in a New Japan ring. Well, he tagged into a New Japan ring, and holy mackerel, he had a great rally. He hit a tope suicida, a Fosbury flop, super kicks, strikes, all of it looked good. The Japanese commentary, that was the other one, Jeremy, I want to mention. The Japanese commentary were just laughing in amazement. They were kind of laughing at the hardcore match later on, but they were laughing in amazement at Fatu. They were like, oh my God. And, you know, he stood out in this one. He just has tremendous upside. I don't even want to say that Jacob Fatu has potential, because I think he's already realized it. We know he's good. There's no doubt that, maybe he's good. We know he's good. We're just excited to see him in the New Japan ring. Anyway, the match went on with Umino ended up beating Isaacs with a Death Rider. And just tell us about what it was like in that building when Jacob Fatu started going nuts.
So the first time I ever saw Jacob Fatu was in 2018 in Daly City at All Pro Wrestling. And that guy was a beast back then. And he's got 5 years of seasoning, and he came in here. And if you've seen him in MLW, you know about Jacob Fatu. If you've been at All Pro Wrestling, you know about Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu is a scary, fast Samoan. He's in the he's cousins with the Usos and Roman Reigns, legit in real life. And
yeah, but who isn't?
Well, this is true, but you can see it. You can see it in the way the guy moves.
Oh, certainly. Yeah,
like there's like, if you keep wrestling like this for the next year, you are going everywhere you want. In 2025, he was fantastic. There was a lot of groundwork laid in this match, set up a couple of different angles and stories, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see Jacob Fatu in Windy City as well.
Yeah, and he was exciting to watch there, and it's just something like he's just very, very agile for his size, of course. And the other thing about him is he's very agile for his size, and yet his strikes still look good, and that's not always. You don't always get both. Is all I'm saying there. So, I'm going to see. Yeah, he's the son of Sam Fatu and the brother of Journey Fatu. So there you go. There's a ton of them. Of course, he was arrested for robbery as an 18-year-old right there. So
that's the big issue.
Yeah. And that's
why WWE has not gone after him. But if he becomes undeniable, where people are like, hey, what's the deal? They will go after people if they can, if it's a compelling enough reason. And I think he might break through.
Yeah, Dunstan is the one that brought that up. That I looked that up just now to make sure I got it correct. But yeah, that might be a tripping point there. But he would feed a family if he was in New Japan in a G1, according to Dunstan. Yeah, that's a good point. And Venkin says he was a madman and has more impressive moveset than his cousins. So a lot of good feelings toward him. Venkin also mentions
go ahead.
He saw a Vikingo Jacob Fatu clip, and it was insanity. Good Lord, I bet it was.
And at that show I went to in 2018, Jacob Fatu was in the main event, and he beat John Morrison and JR Kratos, both names that people would be familiar with through wrestling in New Japan. Do you know who's in the opener of that show? You probably don't, but you're probably going to be surprised when I tell you this.
Okay, give me a date.
2018 in Daly City in the Bay Area.
Oh, boy. Oh, was it? You get an early Solo Sikoa in there?
No, sir. It was a junior heavyweight title 3-way.
Oh, no.
With Marcus Lewis and Jake Atlas challenging Jungle Boy.
Oh, how about that?
So there's Bay Area connection to Jack Perry. And so when he showed up there, it's like, oh, they are really doing that. They had him return in the Bay Area to be a heel in Chicago.
How about that? So there you go. And we've got that bleeds into the next thing. Great. So Lawler shook hands with Fred Rosser again. He did that also in Dallas. And later on,
they did more than that. They slapped each other in the face and then they shook hands.
Yeah, they did the Suzuki Nagata thing, didn't they? And he said they'd like to team with him. But it seems like Team Filthy's either going to be disbanded, or my guess is the West Coast Wrecking Crew will just turn on him and make the decision for him. But on this, Jeremy, would Rosser and Lawler versus the West Coast Wrecking Crew, could that be the tag team feud that brings the strong tag team titles back to the U.S.? Meaning, could one of those teams beat Hikuleo and ELP for them at some point, and then they bring that feud back into the U.S., feuding with each other over those tag team titles? A little thought I had as I was kicking things around in my head.
I think they're going to be separate for now. I think there's a compelling story between Rosser and Lawler for the rest of the year, potentially getting both of those teams to Japan for a run near the end of the year, especially if there are a couple of events up to that point that kind of build the tag team, capabilities of both teams going forward. They could have a series two tag matches between two events going into World Tag League. and then they both have a run. Doesn't have to be great, but the opportunity that they have, it's like Jor-El Nelson and Royce Isaacs, Tom Lawler and Fred Rosser. They're good wrestlers. They're great wrestlers, and they were holding up New Japan Strong on the stage when there weren't a whole lot of wrestlers to carry the banner. So I think things can look good for them if they are. This could be a good year for all four of them.
It could be wishful thinking for me, just because I want to see those matches. I want to see that. I want to see that pairing. After that, so Shota Umino, minding his own damn business outside the ring
for a considerable amount of time. I was like, wow, he's really out here for a while.
he had to wait. I'm not sure where Jack was, but he was there in his mask, and maybe he figured out that now is finally the time. He was wearing a mask, as some people do at these shows right there, but that disguised him effectively, and he clobbered Shota Umino. And I don't even think that New Japan security knew that he was going to be doing that, because they tried to pull him off him. He takes the mask off. It is Jungle Boy Jack Perry, and he took a prop AEW contract, and I guess apparently AEW contracts are one page, and 1/3 of it is taken up with the giant AEW logo, so the back row can see it. Anyway, he tears that thing in half. So he's trying to send that message, and he puts the scapegoat armband on from when he was a dip in London and got himself suspended. And then so he does this. I guess he is going to be feuding with Shota Umino a little bit. But Jeremy, I'll say this: I think this guy is not great, but I think he could be an effective heel for Shota to beat eventually. It doesn't have to be the first match, but for a hurdle for Shota to get over on the way by. And I think he could actually be effective in that role. So I'm when I saw this, it wasn't the same kind of thud that Trent Beretta had, but a little bit of me was just like, Jack Perry, okay. But if he has a good match with Shota Umino and puts him over in the end, I don't think I'll complain much.
I'm all for this, man. I am so all in on this right now. This is the change of conversation that Jack Perry needed, because everything was all about CM Punk and all the things, and they're still.
Tony left him twisting in the wind for about 6 months after that.
He's been gone. They've tried to forget about it. You could have knocked me over with a goddamn feather when
AEW is trying to make
Garrett. I'm talking to Garrett, and John LaRocca is over there next to me, and we're just kind of bullshitting, and all of a sudden, this dude in a Bushi mask jumps Shota, and the crowd's like, "What? Huh?" And we don't have the greatest vantage point from that corner of the ring. We're about 4 feet up off the ground, but there's enough crowd that's standing up on their feet, and it's obscuring much of ringside. And we're just like, that's Jack Perry. At first I thought it was Juke Robinson. When I saw it at first with the hair and the beard and the jean jacket, I was like, why is Juke Robinson here? Because Fred Rosser, and there were a whole there was a thing, and then I realized it was Jack Perry. So I have a story about this.
Okay.
He got on the bus at the New Japan Hotel right when they were leaving, and he had the Bushi mask on, and he got Jack Perry in the Bushi mask. Went all the way to the back of the bus, grabbed a blanket, and laid down in the back. And the rest of the bus was just like, that's not Bushi. But what? It's like you're one of those. Okay, and there were people that were on a need to know that knew about 10 minutes before the thing happened. But it's like most people were not informed of what was happening until the thing went down, and I think it worked out incredibly well. I think this was the opposite of Enzo and Big Cass at Madison Square Garden and Ring of Honor.
Well, Flaming Shark mentions there was a report that security didn't know, and you can see the one guy apologizing to Perry once his mask was off. I noticed that too, Shark. I did see the guy. He was just like, I didn't know, because he's a pretty big guy, a lot bigger than Perry
he's a regular.
I was trying to pull. He's a wrestler. He's one of the Academy guys.
He is Emily May Heller's husband, I believe.
Okay.
The announcer.
Okay.
So he's had all the shows.
I understand.
Yeah,
I
he's all the
understand that.
shows. So like him not knowing was really interesting because he's one of those like deep in New Japan like ring crew kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's why I was explaining the context of that. Like he was very much somebody that should have probably known because that was how tight, like close to the vest, beyond just a couple of the wrestlers knew what was going on.
Yeah, Venkin asks, no, he says, what if he's actually going to be in New Japan for a year? Well, I doubt it. First of all, I think they're going to bring him back into AEW, but if he is in New Japan, like I say, he could be an effective kind of mid-card heel guy. That would be fine.
I would say I like the idea of a match at Windy City and then another match at Forbidden Door.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's somebody for Umino to beat eventually. It does not have to be their first match. You can.
Jack Perry should win in Chicago. Absolutely.
You troll. Yeah.
Oh
no,
my
I
God.
mean, yeah,
it has to happen.
He really does, doesn't it? I mean, what would get more heat? I can't think of anything.
Like that's slam dunk.
Yeah, I mean, what are they thinking if they don't? The only way it works if he loses is if it's CM Punk sneaks into the ring, gives him a GTS, and that's how he beats him. And you don't give that away there. Give that away there. And of course, CM Punk's not even there anymore. So I mean, but that's the only way that works if he loses that match. No one knows what conversation Jack and Tony Khan had, Venkin. Yeah, you're right. I mean, we don't know.
Okay.
But there's I mean, you mentioned that AEW is trying to make people forget about John. AEW is trying to make people forget about a lot of things. Jericho. So
there is
there's a lot of like, let's not talk too out loud here about real life stuff. It's a pro wrestling. It's just wrestling. We can assault women and work here. Don't worry about it.
Based off of the way this all happened, I have zero doubt that Jack Perry is still with AEW. This is all just an angle, and he is not actually like persona non grata like Nick Hausman or something with AEW.
No.
Like this is all just rebuilding and like putting more cachet into Jack Perry, in which he is not just known for Glass and CM Punk.
Yes. Yeah. No. That's absolutely what's going on here. This is the beginning of them bringing him back into AEW more than it's him
1,000% rehabilitation. And it's a great rehabilitation angle. I am here for it. Shota Umino calling him a punk kid, fighting him in Chicago, playing off of CM Punk. And I'm just like, I am here for this.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how long he's around. Like I said, you might be able to get something out of him that's worthwhile. Who knows? Nobody else does yet.
5 matches over under in New Japan.
Yeah, probably over.
I'll take the under.
All right. I don't know. You didn't give me any time to think about that, but if it's just
I literally just thought about it right now.
It could just be a 2. It could be a 2 out of 3 with Shota, but he also might do he might do a run of previews or something like that.
What I was like, I wonder if he's going to do the New Japan Cup.
Yeah, I mean that's a possibility. You could throw him.
If he does the New Japan Cup, he's going to be here for a while.
Yeah.
Like he might have like a cup of coffee in 2025 in New Japan. If he's not in the cup, that is a like tacit admission to me that he's got a couple of angles here or there, with Shota, blow it off, but he ends up back in AEW, and that's entirely reasonable too. Yeah. Would I prefer the New Japan Cup direction? Hell yes.
Well, the whole thing with, I mean, allegedly Riddle is going to do a tour, although that could go real wrong real fast. And what I mean by that, by the way, is that marijuana laws are no joke in Japan. Like you can get locked up good for that. It's not treated as with a wink and a chuckle here in the United States. And if he's going to have to leave those vape pens and whatever else he does the hell at home, because that's a problem in Japan. They don't look at it the same way we do. And since he's basically, his gimmick is that he smokes weed. I know part of it's a gimmick and all that, but he does. And so he needs to watch that, is all I'm saying, is that if he makes it all the way through that tour, be a bit of an accomplishment for Riddle, because they don't treat it a whole lot differently than hard drugs. It's very different than the United States as far as how they respond to marijuana.
I saw Riddle walk down the street for about 50 feet, and he was the most Matt Riddle he could be with no one watching him that he could possibly. And I was just like, you're just like this all the time. Right on, man.
Yeah, there might not be a gimmick. That might not be a gimmick. You're right. All right, moving on. We've got to get through this. We're 45 minutes. David Finlay Jr. and TJ. Nope, that's not the next match. It was the Lucha Libre match, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Volador.
The CMLL main event. Which it was.
Yeah, it could be. Volador Jr. and Mascara Dorada against Rocky Romero and Soberano Jr. 11 minutes, 11 seconds. And this was terrific. It was a lot of fun. They just worked straight lucha style. There was no effort or attempt to adapt. And I think that was a smart move. It really made the match stood out, and everybody there knew exactly how to work this thing. Dorada ended up being the big star here. Rocky is an excellent heel. And Volador won with a running destroyer, and it was an air show in all the best way. I love this stuff. I love Lucha Libre. These are four of the better practitioners at it, and it was a wonderful match to watch. I just had a blast.
This was a party match for me. I was taking in some tweeting with Jack Perry stuff on social media and trying to watch the match at the same time. And I was like, man, they're just going all over the place. I could kind of put the phone down after 2 or 3 minutes into it, and it's a lot of fun, and it's actually getting me more interested in Fantasticamania next month. So good job by New Japan.
Yeah, and we'll be seeing these four in singles matches over the course of that time in Fantasticamania as well. Yeah. So
I threw some information on it at the end of the stuff we have here today.
Okay, and then we moved on to David Finlay Jr. against TJP. Finlay had other work to do later on in the night, so TJP took a lot of this one. Like I said, just 13 minutes 7 seconds. TJP used red mist, a lot of mist in the show tonight.
Yes.
But Finlay used the new Oblivion move into the GTS to win. Since TJP was doing the job, he took a lot of the match, though, and Finlay actually sells as a heel pretty well. As far as I'm concerned, Jeremy, I know people are not convinced that David Finlay is a competent leader of Bullet Club, and I understand it, but I feel like he's doing his part. He had a good match at Wrestle Kingdom. This was a good match. He's going through and being as vicious as possible and doing his part and having the good matches. Now, whether the fans eventually take to him or not, I think if he goes down this path, eventually more of them will come around. So I understand that a lot of people still don't feel that way. What was the live reaction to Finlay?
They did not like him, but I cannot say that it was an overwhelming level of like vitriol towards him, like he was the most hated man in the room. They were like, you're the bad guy, we don't like you. We remember you from last year taking out Jay White, and it's like, you have cachet in this building. We know that you're going to come off as one of the biggest bad guys around because of your time in this building, but we're not totally sold. And I definitely felt like, both when I was watching the show, rewatching it and watching it there, that if you are not believing in Finlay, this match was not going to do anything to change your mind.
Flaming Shark mentions this. I think Finlay's doing everything right at the moment. Yeah, I think he's doing his part. You can't ask him to do anything but cut good promos and have good matches. It's just a matter of people buying them.
This was a TJP spotlight match in a lot of ways. Like, he just got a lot to do a lot of his stuff, and Finlay was going to take it in the end, and it was designed that way. And TJP maximized his minutes. I've been saying that about a couple people lately. Like, he had his time to shine, and he shined like a diamond.
Yeah, he said that it takes a while. It's hard to gauge sometimes with heels, and that's also true. And he says the War Dogs as a group are fantastic. Yeah, I think so too. That cage match is going to be a big deal for him.
Oh, I'm super hyped for it.
Me too. But moving on to this one, you mentioned something with TJP.
Yeah.
Briefly, in post-match comments, he said he might not be a junior for a whole lot longer. And again, not everything is gospel in those, but not a whole lot happens by accident, more than there used to be, but not everything. And I think he is kind of throwing his hat in a little bit as the idea of a possible leader of United Empire going forward here too. So TJP's gotten a lot of spotlight between what they did at Wrestle Kingdom with him, this match here. So we might be seeing him move up into the heavyweight division, perhaps, maybe move into a more prominent role with Ospreay leaving. But they seem to have plans.
I don't know. And that's just me, like, how I feel about TJP. Between the Answer gimmick and being positioned as the leader of United Empire, I feel like it's one or the other, and they've already gone in the Anklar direction. And I'm not sure he has enough cachet in wrestling to usurp that role. And it might be just kind of a red herring before they
could be
put somebody else that is not quite established within United Empire, but could potentially lead United Empire for the next year or so. I don't know. It's a puzzle. Maybe something to unpack. Maybe like a riddle.
Well, I'm not saying that I'm not saying he's going to be the leader. I'm saying that part of the story might be that he's put his name in for it. I didn't mean to say that he's going to be the next leader of UE, but I think it's going to be part of the story.
When he says that he put his name in, it's like, no, that doesn't feel right to me. That doesn't feel like a natural progression of the direction of TJP.
Again, as far as Riddle goes, and I know you just drop that in there. As far as Riddle being in the UE, just cautious with Riddle in New Japan. There's just a lot could go wrong. A lot could go wrong with this. So that's and he said, Shark says he could make a run at being the junior heavyweight champion. Maybe he wins best of the super juniors. Certainly would be a contender for that. Yeah. There's a lot you could do with the guy because he's pretty versatile as far as in-ring work goes. So after that, we had the Strong Women's title match. Let's get through the. I'm skipping around all over the place. This is the Openweight tag team title match. Sorry, guys. Gorillas of Destiny, Hikuleo and El Phantasmo against the Bullet Club. This is Coughlin and Connors. So we did not have Maloney. We didn't, and Gabe Kidd was busy with Eddie Kingston. Boy, was he! So we got this kind of a makeshift Bullet Club team, but they were still really good together. This was a crisp, fast-paced match. It was good. Hikuleo sold a lot early. ELP did his usual run of dives and the cabrata and just one after the other. That's always fun to watch and always gets over. A terrific sequence there. War Dogs hit a hijack, so it looked like they were going to give it to them, but ELP managed to break that up. The baby faces were over. Both guys, Hikuleo and ELP, had chance for them at various points in this one that were audible, even on the Japanese feed. And eventually, Hikuleo and ELP broke up a spike pile driver attempt. They fought for and got the big choke slam with Hikuleo, and then Thunderkiss 86 splash to win. Yeah, because this isn't the real Bullet Club tag team, isn't it? So Coughlin and Connors aren't.
I was about to give away like this isn't. We're not going in that direction right now.
Yeah, so that was a solid defense for Gorillas of Destiny. They have two different defenses coming up against Chase Owens and Kenta, one for each belt. So, there's more to do there, but a heck of a good match in the middle of the show.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. ELP is one of the biggest baby faces on this card. Everybody seems to love him. There was a point, I think, at the beginning where they put all of their belts on a kid right outside of ringside. So this kid is draped in all four belts, and they're taking photos with him. And it's just like, this kid is just losing his mind. Hikuleo is just having fun. They're doing their, they got to do their cartwheel high five, and they're getting foiled by Bullet Club from doing it at the beginning. Just, classic babyface stuff. These are the right guys to have the belts right now.
Yeah, let's see. And then Venkin just says, wasn't it on this show last year that ELP got kicked out of Bullet Club?
No.
I think it happened a little later in the year than that.
But, no, it was not.
Yeah, it happened a little bit
later.
The
last year was when Jay White and Hikuleo had their match, and that was the big angle where loser had to leave New Japan, or Jay White had to leave New Japan if he lost, and he lost.
And not only did he lose that one, but Battle in the Valley was Finlay clocked him in the head with the shillelagh before he could say goodbye too, right? Wasn't that at San Jose, or was that at the Pyramid? Yeah, I'm losing track. But there were a few more months.
No, it was Kingston. Match. It was Kingston and Finlay. Yeah. It was Kingston and Jay White.
Kingston and Jay.
And then afterward, Finlay clocked.
Yeah,
Jay White when he was saying goodbye.
Point being, there was a little bit of time where ELP and Finlay were both in Bullet Club together, and ELP was expressing reservations that got him kicked out. So yeah, Battle in the Valley.
Yeah, it was during the New Japan Cup last year.
There we go. And so we have the next. Now we have the Strong Women's title match. This was Julia and Trish Adora. Just went over 13 minutes. I thought this was a strong performance for Trish. Julia was good again. Both of them hit hard, and so they hit each other very hard. That's just their style. Stiff forearm, German suplex exchange really hit home right there. Looked pretty good. There was a good battle on the top rope that led to a butterfly suplex from Julia. That was basically the beginning of the end for Trish Adora. The exchange of strikes led to a Northern Lights suplex for the win. I liked a little bit that this match began slow and cautious, and by that I do not mean boring, but I mean a little chain wrestling, a little bit of, the little neutral stuff where you lock up and then break up. To me, Jeremy, that just kind of says that they're getting over the idea that this is a title match, and I don't want to do anything stupid early. I'm calculating. It gets over the idea of a title match and looks different than everything else, which a lot of these shows, these matches are kind of shot out of a cannon. And so this actually had a different beginning to it that I like. Good performance from Trish, retention from Julia, bigger things to come. Overall, not bad.
I thought Julia was able to make Trish look better than she was. And Trish was good, but Julia is great. And so Trish was able to look great because Julia was bringing her up to her level. I don't know if Trish Adora could have these matches consistently, but you have found out that her potential to do so consistently in the future, she has it, which is good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a sign of a great worker, isn't it? That you can take other people and lift them up there. So after that, we had the X who wasn't an X. This is Matt Riddle and X, mystery partner that just about everybody figured out who it was before I knew beforehand, and I was on a cruise ship. But we were on, again, Zack Sabre Jr. and Bad Dude Tito. Big Teats back in the house, and man, did he look good. So the Chosen Bros, Matt Riddle and Jeff Cobb, faced TMDK. It went just under 11:45 here. And of course, this is a team that's been, that has a lot of history together, Cobb and Riddle. But for me, the opposite pairings were the highlights for me. Tito against Cobb was a lot of fun. I would love to see that match. So was Zach versus Riddle, of course. No surprise there. Zach worked Riddle's bare feet a lot, which was fun. He reversed a kick into an ankle lock, which looked fantastic. I remember talking about.
Do you remember the Cobb versus Tito match on Strong last year?
Yeah, I now that you mentioned it, I do.
That was a good match.
Yeah, they're both just so.
They came back for it again, and it was just like, hell yeah, this match made me so happy when I was watching it, and up to a point of like, it was my favorite match of the night, and I was really curious about how the reaction that Riddle had to that night as well.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in just a moment, but the key is Riddle is facing Hiroshi Tanahashi for that TV title coming up very soon, so he needed to look good here, and of course he was going to get the win. That was without a doubt. He ended up getting the Bro Derek on Bad Dude Tito to win the match. He had to. There's just no other way to do it if you're hyping up a match with Tanahashi. So with that in mind, and Riddle moving forward to face the Ace and the President, what was the reaction to Riddle live in the building?
It was quiet and muted when they were doing the recap video to hype up the match, where he was doing his like speech to Tanahashi, in which Tanahashi, did the whole "I don't know who you are," which was one of the funniest things that happened on New Year Dash. So it's quiet, and then its music hits, and then all of a sudden you just hear the bro, and like the entire audience, you could just hear the pattern of like the beatbox of the bro. And I was like, well, he's going to be fine. No problem there at all. And then that was that.
As long as he holds on. Yeah, just keep your stuff together.
I thought, frankly speaking, he was the weakest guy in the match.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, Tito really stood out. Zach is Zach, and Cobb is Cobb.
Cobb are just like a day at the office. And it's like Riddle just did Riddle thing within there, but it's like, yeah, he shouldn't be the best guy on the thing. He needed to like up his game to match, and this was a good kind of like, all right, this is what I got to do to be better.
And keep in mind, he's been working a WWE style for quite a while. Sometimes it takes time to shake that off and break out of it. Not that WWE style is bad; they have good matches, but there is there's a box in which you have to work. Triple H has said it. He said, if you're going to be on our team, you have to work out of our playbook. And there is a WWE playbook. And sometimes it takes guys a few matches to shake some of that off. We know he can. I mean, when he was in PWG, he had really exciting matches and interesting matches that weren't all like his WWE matches, and WWE matches weren't bad. So it sometimes takes a little while to get that, back. So
we had a lot of good, couple good pictures here.
Let's see. Oh, there's Zach. There you go. There's the Chosen Bros.
Woohoo! There you go. And then we had this
All
match.
Right. Well, before we move on, I want to get to a couple of comments. We have some good ones here. Can Bad Dude Tito switch with Riddle to challenge Tana? Well, that wouldn't be bad. And then basically a lot of love for Tito in here. We all think that he should be in Japan more.
When was the Mustafa Ali video?
That was somewhere in the middle here. It wasn't part of any one match. It was like a video in the middle of the show.
Yeah.
Where
okay, so let me describe it while you get a glass of water here. So Mustafa Ali video pops up, and he proceeds to cut a campaign video in 2024, being your leader in pro wrestling, and he decides to challenge Hiromu Takahashi. And when he shot his shot against Hiromu Takahashi in that audience, the place went nuts, and I was really surprised. Like, I knew, and I've been hearing stuff about how Mustafa Ali is drawing crowds and is a draw at all these events that he's been doing. But I didn't believe it until I saw it with my own eyes at, like, the New Japan event. Like, this crowd loved him, and I wasn't sure why. I know he's good. I've watched the WWE stuff, but there is a belief in him that is undeniable, that it sure isn't what has been shown on WWE programming that has led you to believe it. So I know he's good. And for him to have a match with Hiromu Takahashi in Chicago is probably going to be balls to the wall awesome. Yeah. And I have no doubt about that whatsoever. But I was very, very surprised in the confidence of this crowd and how much they believed in him.
Sometimes I think crowds like the New Japan crowd, the Ring of Honor, even AEW to an extent, get excited about people, not major number one stars coming over. Like, obviously, they were very excited about CM Punk. That's not, or anybody else. But
yeah,
sometimes I think they root for people they know are good, but never got a chance to show it. Mm-hmm. Because the idea is, oh, now you're here, now you can show it, and we're excited to see it. And I think that the former Rusev, Miro, I think some of his early reactions in AEW were part of that, where people were just like, oh, yeah, chains are off. We're going to see the good version of them now. And there were other people like that, too. But so sometimes I think that they just think, oh, we know this guy's good. He's going to be in Hiromu Takahashi. What could go wrong? It's going to be great. And you start to build up this idea of we're finally going to see the full potential of someone that never got a chance to show it. Sometimes for our type of wrestling fans that are really into the work rate and all that, that's more exciting, or as exciting in a different way as seeing a top star. It's just the idea that you can hype it up in your head that
something
this match is
never happened before and never happened again kind of thing.
Yeah. Or, just like we're finally going to get to see this guy Unchained right here. And Shark mentioned the same thing. People really feel like he got screwed over by WWE booking, but yeah, it's wild how much of a groundswell support he has. And USVA guy is here, and he says, Ali and Hiromu is going to be wonderful. Yeah. Dunstan, Ali versus Hiromu is a big match that feels like a legit dream match. A year ago, I don't think you would have used dream match and Mustafa Ali in the same sentence, but he's earned a lot of cachet, hasn't he?
He's earned cachet that I didn't know he had.
Well, all right. Well, let's take a look at the next match, which was, now we're getting into this here. We're getting into the Continental title match now. Talk about something. We've had a Lucha Libre match on this show. We've had some technical stuff on this show, and then we got this. This was Eddie Kingston and Gage Kidd. Kid with a jump start, of course. This is just
okay. I have to tell you, I have video, and I wish I could put it on the video right now, but it has Kingston's theme song on it. The ovation in the audience when Kingston came out damn near blew the roof off the place. Like, to tell you that New Japan fans love Eddie Kingston is like, you don't know the meaning of love. This place went nuts for him. Please continue with that in mind.
Few people in wrestling have the connection with the audience that Eddie Kingston has right now. It's really seeing something special, folks. It's not like this very often. And of course, Kids went with the jump start. Of course, this guy's such a good heel. Eddie's brawls are on another level with his selling, his intensity. The way he seems to just have to gird himself up for one more push. Let's see if I can just take this guy down. I've been beaten to death, but I'm going to style up and try to do one more spinning back fist, see if I can end this guy. And Kid's great at this stuff too. The spinning back fist by Eddie ended up knocking Kid out of the ring, and then they brawled out there. But in the meantime, this was just a great brawl, just a fight between two guys that know how to do this stuff. And I'm not going to do it justice by giving any kind of a blow by blow, but just go back and watch two guys who know how to sell the idea that they are in a knockdown drag out. And they were both fantastic here. Kingston was just about to get back in the ring off of that count out. And Kid, who just so happened to be laying by the microphone, grabs the microphone and says, "Is that all you got, you fat bitch?" Now, we all know the story about Sammy Guevara. When he says that,
oh my God, you could hear a pin drop. You could hear a pin drop in the
so great.
Before everybody went, oh shit.
Eddie loses his damn mind as he would and goes after him. It's a double count. Like I said, best double count out ever, according to Venkin.
We were all so completely okay with it, with the way that this went out. It went down. I was like, oh fuck.
No,
somebody's
here's why.
Gonna die.
You know why I love the double count out the most, Jeremy? Is seriously, and Venkin and everybody else. You know why I love the double count out? It's like, yes, we're getting it again.
Yeah.
That's
like,
all I
we're
want.
Getting a no DQ in Windy City. And I think I'm pretty sure I had a conversation with Paul last week. Like, okay, you're not doing a no DQ match for this match, but you're doing a no DQ match for the next one.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, now we know, right? They had plans. Yeah, and Flaming Shark says, "I'd have laughter that killed me. Kid's the best." Yeah, he really is starting to become that. Kid is becoming the king of the double count out. Yeah, he is. He's worked a couple of really good ones.
Have you ever
that's
seen,
fantastic. No notes,
The
beautiful.
Way of
Loved
the
it.
Gun? It's an old movie with Benicio del Toro and Jason Philippe or whatever.
That's a deep cut, but go ahead.
It's a very deep cut. There are some lines at the beginning of the movie that I cannot utter here because they're so filthy. But the way that there's like this brutal knockdown, drag out fight at the beginning of it just reminded me of The Raw. Just like these two convinced me that for 10 minutes, they fucking hated each other.
So we're going to see some version of this probably in Chicago as our guest. And we don't know what it'll be, what the stipulation will be. It has not been announced yet. And in the promos, they kept mentioning their friends too. Eddie was very specific about how he has some Puerto Rican friends. So we might get a couple of things on this before we get Kid versus Kingston one-on-one again. Perhaps there could be a multi-person match to come on that. So we'll see where that ends up, because he specifically mentioned it. What's that?
Homicide and Ortiz.
You got to figure, right? I mean, but you know, if they come in for this, you know, against the War Dogs, the way they brawl, hell yeah. Coughlin, get him involved. I'm down. Yeah. Let's see. Dunstan says, "I hope to President Tana that the War Dogs can stay. They're so good." Yeah, they really are.
I would say Ortiz before Santana, but that would just be me.
Well,
you're not getting them both.
You're not getting them both. We know that for sure. But, you know, Homicide's around. And, you know, that's the kind of match where Homicide could actually excel when there's 5 other guys, too, that can kind of cover his weaknesses. And then USVA guy says the possibilities for Gabe are infinite. Kiyomiya, Eddie, many others. Boy, the very few people have more interesting things set up for themselves for 2024 than Gabe Kidd does. And, you know, everyone seems to have something interesting in mind for him. He started crap with a lot of different interesting people, and it's going to lead to a lot of good matches.
Bright future and a lot of blood.
A lot of blood. But, you know, he can cook that up again. So after that, we had to have a no disqualification match.
I actually have a little story about this one. I need to go to the bathroom, Steven. And it was right before this match. And I figured I had time for the video package. And I really thought I had time. Thought I was gonna
all kinds of time. Gonna do a video package, maybe a little promo thing.
I'm coming out, wash my hands, dry it off, looking around. I think I'm fine. I go through the side door of the entrance, and I get about 4 feet, and people look at me, and I'm like, I need to get out of the way. And I move about 4 feet further, and there's John Moxley coming out to his ring, and I'm like, I look around, and there's one walkway around the back of the arena to my feet. And I realize John Moxley is going to be coming exactly my way, and I need to get the fuck out of the way right now. So I am pacing to my feet Getting right back to it and then pulling out my phone and taking this photo.
Oh, there you go. You texted this to me. That this happened to you, and I just said, "Well, you should have just walked to the ring." Except then you would have had to fight Shingo. Who wants that?
God! Oh
That's
God!
great.
I was like, how does this keep happening to me, Steve?
USVA guy says, "I saw you walk by my booth, and I thought, you were almost deputized as a manager. You know, just lead him to the ring and just like, go get him, Moxley."
I think I can get back to right thing. I'm like, I had moments to spare, but I probably should have had my phone and taken a photo / thing because I was right there for pretty much the entire walk.
The funny thing, you should have just led him to the ring and there's like, go get him, Mox, like you're his manager. The thing is, their security would have been like, oh shit, they didn't tell us about something else. Well, don't get in the way.
I was desperate. I was like, part of it was looking at the entrance to see if I was like in the entrance in any way. I'm like, thank God, I don't need that smoke in my life.
Oh my goodness. Well, there you have it. So once the match started, though, it's Shingo Takagi and it's New Japan Jon Moxley. And it was very, very good. There was a cane duel early on. Shingo grabbed a couple of those canes, the bamboo canes, and tossed one to Moxley in a display of machismo. Shingo bled early in this one, a lot earlier than Mox did. They hit each other with all kinds of crap, basically. Everything was done with good timing, though. It was a well-worked version of these no DQ matches. Really good sequence, battling for a pumping bomber. Those two work stiff. They have no problem hitting and getting hit, so everything looked pretty good here. And so before we go to the highlights, which again aren't going to do it justice, what stood out for you in this one?
Okay, so I have to tell you, from where I was sitting, I could barely see a lot of this match that happened at ringside, and a lot of it happened at ringside. There was one sequence where Moxley jumped off the top rope and landed on Shingo, and all I could hear was a sound. And I'm like, oh, that sounds bad, but I couldn't see anything. Within the match itself, the chair fight, the end, the sequence at the end between the kick out at one with Shingo all the way to the finish. I didn't like it in person, but when I rewatched it in the end, I did rewatch this match on TV because it was 1,000 times better on television than it was from watching it live. And that is the only match on the card that I would say that was just a hard watch for me, both because I was, it was getting later on the night. We were super hyped and there was not a whole lot of like stepping off the gas during this show. But I wanted to make a point of watching it on TV because I'd heard how good it was. I had a great time watching it. But it was definitely better for me watching it on TV.
So eventually, Shingo went through the thinnest table in the history of pro wrestling. This table was so rickety when they set it up. A full Yeti full of coffee would have broken through this table right there. But poor Shingo had to be carefully placed on it. But another table was later set up. Shingo ended up shooting green mist at Moxley. Mist is the way to go today. It's the new crucifix pin. Led to a DVD on Mox through the table, which looked pretty brutal. Pumping Bomber, made in Japan. Both of those got 2. This is my note here, Jeremy. You could drop a building on New Japan Moxley, apparently. It's like, the guy's just indestructible.
The guy is Godzilla.
Venkin mentions this in the chat here. There was and I mentioned it too in my notes. Mox hit a cutter, a curb stomp, and a death rider for 2. And that got a huge pop, and it was a cool looking sequence, I have to say, right there. That was really good. Finally, there was a Death Rider on an open chair, a chair not laying flat, but set up for someone to sit in. Death Rider on that to win. My final note on this match was utterly preposterous and a lot of fun to watch.
Yes, it was, and I was up on my feet clapping at the very end of this match. I was like, God damn, that was a good match.
Yeah,
and I think Meltzer came over to me right at this match. And I don't know if you've ever heard these stories before, but when Meltzer's writing his notes when he's out at home, away from home, he texts somebody. Like over every note that he writes about a match, like sentences, like in a row on the way the order of a match goes, he'll write it down and he'll send it to somebody as a text message, and then he'll go read the text message. Because for whatever reason, it works for him to make sure that he has everything in the order of how it happens, and he can go back and it can be like he counts it up more than like no cap or anything like that because it went to somebody else. There's like a receipt of it somewhere.
Okay.
He's having issues with the internet, so he runs over to me with this phone of like, I'm having problems with my text messages. I need you to fix it. And he puts his phone in my hand, and all of a sudden I have to go through about 100 text messages in order to like try again and use my hotspot and all this. And this is after the match with Moxley and Shingo. And so Moxley's trying to do his promo, and I'm with Dave, and he's like, I don't know if Okada and Ospreay are going to beat that. And I was just like, you don't think those two are going to beat that? Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. And then I'm trying to do his phone, and I do something, and all of his texts disappear, and he has a panic attack. And for about 3 minutes, I'm sitting there going, I never need to touch Dave's phone ever again in my life. This is freaking me the fuck out because he's having a panic attack. I'm trying to enjoy the show right now. Moxley just like called out Naito. What's happening here? There's a poster on the screen. Everything is going nuts. And then
Jeremy.
all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I got the text back.
Oh,
like,
Jeremy.
Okay, great. Go sit down.
Thanks to you, there's going to be a paragraph blank spot in the Observer where Jeremy Finestone couldn't rescue the text messages. So Flaming Shark mentions this, that the New Japan Moxley has the true spirit of Inoki with a little Onita mixed in. Well, we talked about that too. We said it was Shingo tributing Onita or Terry Funk more. I think a little more Onita than Terry Funk with the jeans and the white t-shirt. Funk usually wore his tights there. But we had that same conversation.
Do you know what Shingo's shirt said?
What did it say?
Burning Shingo.
There you go.
Hardcore.
Yeah, it was a hardcore match. That was a lot of fun. It was a good time. So anyway, moving on from that, Moxley gets the microphone after that and said that there's only one thing left that he wants to do, and he wants Tetsuya Naito. That got a pop, and now we know we're getting that in Chicago. So as far as the challenge goes,
that's why we got the LIJ match with Shingo to set him up for Naito. I was like, why are we doing Shingo? And I actually I wasn't half paying attention because of the whole Dave thing, and I just yell out, Okada! And then he says, Naito. I'm like, oh, that's better.
We'll probably get that eventually. But for now...
I hope Wrestle Kingdom next year is Okada and Moxley. One of these days we're going to get it.
Definitely intriguing because they don't beat Moxley very often, but I think Naito's going to do it. And you just don't get that that very often.
Years and no pins. Naito's the guy, or Moxley wins the going into Forbidden Door.
Could go either way. We'll see. It does put the title in jeopardy, which is always intriguing. I don't necessarily think Naito goes into Wrestle Kingdom as the champion, by the way, next year. So I think he might very well lose it.
I don't a long reign, but how long is that reign?
Yeah. I don't see this being a long thing with 10 defenses. I just don't. But who knows? I mean, it could do it. Moxley has a lot of cachet in Japan. He's a great New Japan wrestler. He has a little bit almost of it's a totally different wrestling style, but almost that Bruiser Brody.
I've thought about that before.
This marauding American that just tears apart everybody and has all these great matches that go all around the arena. He doesn't wrestle like Brody. No one does, but a lot of people have tried. But Moxley doesn't try to wrestle like Brody. It's a different style, but that same kind of spirit of, this thing could spill out and go all through the arena at any time and be very exciting. So, and Dunstan has a question here, and I think it's a good one. With just 2 matches announced, they already sold out the current setup. Do you think they could push for an actual sellout?
Yeah,
I do too. I think it gets 7,000 or 8,000 in the place if they just announce a whole card and really hype it correctly. I think it's there. Yeah. I think the potential is there. Yes.
Flaming Shark has a comment here. He should fire that one up.
Oh, sorry. What's that one?
Mox weirdly has a real chance of winning. Him doing Windy City, Dontaku, Dominion, and Forbidden Door.
Don Taco is a place up in Dallas. I've been there. It's a Mexican joint. It's not bad.
And AEW All Out as well. That could be a couple of things. I would like it. It would be bold, and given that he just had a global heavyweight championship match and did not win that one, but did not lose either. Ambiguity.
Here's my question on that. Let's not my question on that, my comment on that. Let's see how many tickets Naito title defenses sell. Before that happens, before we get to that, if things are really up from Sonata, that's going to play a factor too. Because remember, New Japan, ticket sales, merchandise. Those are their main two sources of revenue. There aren't huge TV deals to do. So ticket sales, and if the tickets are up with Naito as champion, then that's going to be a factor in the decision making.
So it is the 24th, right? It is all LIJ and just 5-guy singles matches.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good one to pay attention to.
Yeah. And then Dunstan just says, I don't think having the top title being gone from New Japan would be a good idea.
Yeah, probably not.
You'd really have to twist their arm.
There is a Moxley aspect of it that there are a few people that have that ability and have had enough time in New Japan that you could probably do a few months, but I would not want it to be that case going into G1.
Yeah, and Venkin mentions Moxley did say at the start of the year is going to be there a lot. Well, I mean, he fits into New Japan in a very interesting and exciting way. So we're moving on to the main event.
Do it.
Special singles match, Kazuchika Okada and Will Ospreay went 28 minutes and 34 seconds. It's what we expected, isn't it? We expected a wonderful, classic, strong style professional wrestling match, and we got it. This was again another one that we won't do justice. I'm glad you got that picture. I'm going to talk about that in a second. This was Okada again doing all of his stuff where he's working the neck, DDTs on the outside, pile drivers and stuff like that. Ospreay pulling his moves out. The match had that consistent build to it that you love about an Okada match, where the intensity ratchets up minute by minute by minute by minute. And, the longer it goes, the less you want it to stop, but the more excited you are to see the finish. As it built, they started doing the classic moves, their own classic moves and each other's. I mean, at one point, Ospreay hit the Okada drop kick in a Rainmaker. At one point, Okada hit a Stormbreaker in there. There were just all these little Easter eggs that have been planted, plant Easter eggs that have been laid throughout their entire rivalry. There were little notes that were hit that tapped into different eras of their time in New Japan together, all building up for the final sequence, of course, which was them squaring off. Like I said, I'm not going to do blow by blow. It's not going to do it justice. Hard, short clotheslines until Will collapsed. A Death Valley driver. The dying Rainmaker finally gets the pin. You had a photograph up there where he actually did do a couple of finishers, and Ospreay kicked out. And this one, here's what I'm saying. That he's doing, for the folks of you listening, Ospreay kicked out of a Rainmaker. Okada looks utterly shocked in that cartoon WWE way, which always like, please don't tell me he's practicing that. Of course, the thing is, in WWE, you look shocked when somebody kicks out of a move that you never beat anybody with, but you still do the hand on the head and the eyes thing. It's one of the dumbest things that company does.
He
but
did this for so long.
Look,
I got so many pictures of this. I think it was like 30 seconds, and he never done this, and so he milked it for all it was worth.
He was going to do it. Hopefully he only does it the once. Venkin just says, I was losing my shit when that drop kick got countered into a Liger bomb. Fantastic.
That was the move that popped me of the entire night. That was the move that I was like, oh my God.
Will hitting the Okada drop kick got me. I love, because his timing was as good as Okada's. And one of the thing about Okada is he always hits that drop kick at exactly the right time. And Will did it this time. Shark says not one of their best matches. It's among them though, but still absolutely superb. Surreal to watch an Ospreay Okada match in person. Yeah,
I feel stupid lucky for the matches I've seen live in my life.
Oh man, when I went to the G1 in Dallas, I remember just sitting there thinking it's the first night of the G1, so at least the main event is going to be really good because they always do a big main event there. And when they said it was going to be Okada versus Tanahashi, I almost fainted in my living room. I was so ecstatic. And when that match, when Red Shoes rang the bell for that match, there was a 1 minute standing ovation before they locked up. And it wasn't for any one guy. It was just a matter of this building being, we're happy to be here to see this. And you got a little bit of that at the beginning of this one. I believe there's a holy shit chant before they locked up.
No, I have a 2-minute video. If I haven't sent it to you, I will, where it's just basically like the vibe of Ospreay from the entrance all the way as he prowls to the ring and walks up to the ring to the corner of the rope, and it was like, this is so cool.
Yeah, these two are fantastic together. It looks like it's the last one for a while anyway, and they went out great with Okada getting the victory. Afterwards, of course, because they have to ruin everything, the War Dogs came out and started laying people out. And, of course, it makes sense because they're going to be in that steel cage match coming up next month. However, we had Eddie Kingston, who went right after Gabe Kidd again. Thank you, Eddie, for making sense.
Well, no, it was TJP and Jeff Cobb.
Yeah, no, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. But UE was out there, of course, to support Will. Eddie came out, ran them all off, and that allowed Will to cut his post-match promo and not have that cut off the way Jay White was cut off the previous year.
Yeah, I was very interested in the fact that they saved Eddie as the big hero to drive off the bad guys, because they're really trying to make him like the centerpiece of the promotion stateside. And so I just I have to really underline like the way that they in the audience and at the show, like putting Kingston in that position was very, very noteworthy.
Yeah, it definitely was. And it was just a terrific night there. And we move on now from there to the Windy City Riot. We go on to the New Beginning. And there's just good stuff ahead all the way around. And for Will, the good news is, again, AEW, which does not close the door to future appearances. I don't think we'll be seeing him as regularly as we'd like, but he's going to be around at least there. And just a lot of things set up for the future, which is exciting. It's not a self-contained little show like, hey, we've been to America. You get to see everybody. Now we're leaving. There's some continuity here. There's stories to follow. Just a thumbs up for me all around.
Best night I've ever had at the Civic. Consensus is the best night of wrestling that's ever happened at the San Jose Civic, and there's been a lot of shows there. And
you said that, right?
Yeah, we were talking about it right after the show. We were like, have you ever seen a better show? You're like, nope. Like, how many shows have you been here? And it's like over 100. I'm like, yeah, all right then. Yeah. Eddie, I owe you one. And Venkin says when Will Ospreay rescued him, is this something do you think that is played out in AEW some way, shape, or form?
It's always an option. You can always drop it in there. I doubt that there is a storyline woven that far ahead in Tony Khan's mind that has Will Ospreay saving Eddie Kingston. But who knows? I mean, there could be some twists and turns in this that Will could help Eddie out, or it could just be, it's just something you would say in that situation too. And so with the idea that you can always come back to it if it's there, if you drop it there, you can always pick it up later or maybe not. But yeah, I would love to see it. I think that's a fascinating, coupling there. A team, very, very different, but it might work great. So
I'm just throwing a couple pictures out while we're talking about it here.
Go right ahead. Yeah, there's some good stuff there.
The brawl that we had there, and then I got previews for the next couple of things here.
Okay, let's go through those. So we have some things here. Yeah, okay. So New Beginning in Nagoya. Let's start with that. So
this is on the 20th, which is tomorrow morning, right?
Saturday morning. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on which time zone you're in. But Saturday, January 20th. The key matches for this one: King of Pro Wrestling title match, Great-O-Khan versus Taiji Ishimori. And this is an interesting stipulation. They did the vote. Now, Great-O-Khan went for a bull rope match. But I think that they picked the better idea. This is a ring fit match. So, Jeremy, 10-minute match. Every 3 minutes, though, the participants must do 30 seconds of high-intensity training. Should be fun.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Ishimori is going to sneak a pin in the in one of the between the second and third exercise, and then running away for the last 30 seconds of the 9-minute thing. This is going to be silly. I got a question for you. Did you happen to catch anything about this Tama Tonga-EVIL bullshit?
Yeah, apparently word is that somebody made a mistake and listed Evil prematurely as the NEVER Openweight champion. Now, they covered this nicely by putting together a very quick video of Evil going into the control room. As you can see here on screen, there's a YouTube of it on the New Japan YouTube channel where he intimidates a poor office worker sitting next to
a
very nervous Chris Charlton. And Chris is over there on the right, and this poor guy is just getting roughed up by Evil.
This was all an angle from the beginning. Whenever there's Evil, whenever the Never Openweight titles involved, you need to ring the bells of BS, and this is exactly what happened here.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, now that does not mean that Evil's not winning this match. He could very well. We don't know, but we don't know. There are options there, but that one's going to happen. We're also getting the strong tag team titles on the line. El Phantasmo and Hikuleo in the first of their 2 matches with Chase Owens and Kenta. They will face again for the IWGP titles later in the tour, which we'll get to in a bit. So that's Saturday. Those are the key matches there.
We also got the Never Openweight and Togi Makabe against the TMDK with Kosei Fujita, and then we got one of the 1,000 just 5 guys in the LIJ matches that we're going to be seeing for the next few months. Desperado against Sho and Yoshinobu Kanemaru, leading up to the junior heavyweight title match. We also got some United Empire and Bullet Club action, a little bit of brawl. And then we got Tomoaki Honma, Shota Umino versus Ren Narita and Yujiro Takahashi. I just have to do this. This is the best picture. Oh my God, this is so great.
Flaming Shark mentioned that Ishimori as King of Pro Wrestling is going to be peak memes. Yeah, probably will. That's going to be fun. And then Dunstan mentions one more thing about Battle in the Valley. The great thing about this show is that nothing felt lacking on the show. You got a little of everything. It was a true classic variety show.
So let's look at the 23rd and 24th, right?
Okay. So let's get into this a little bit because we've got the New Beginning will continue on Sunday in Shiga, but that one doesn't seem like it's going to go up on World. It looks like a non-televised event. And then on the 23rd and 24th, they will be in Korakuen Hall. Mostly preview tags, but on top on the 23rd, we'll see the junior heavyweight title match between Desperado and Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Master Wato against Sho in a special singles match. On the 24th, the second night in a row, there at Korakuen, it'll be Shota Umino versus Ren Narita in a singles match. That's the main event there. So not too many singles matches in New Japan, so that's a kind of a big one right there.
I feel validated that Ren and Shota ended up being a main event singles match on a card after Wrestle Kingdom. I'm like, that's what I wanted. And that's what we're getting.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's going to main event a lot of shows over the years.
Absolutely.
We're going to continue on with the tour. New Beginning in Osaka is Sunday, February 11th. That's Super Bowl Sunday for those folks here in the United States, or as they call it anywhere else, Sunday. It's the Never Openweight 6-man titles, Ishii, Tanahashi, and Okada against the TMDK team of Kosei Fujita, Shane Haste, and Mikey Nichols. Also see the IWGP Tag Team title match, Chase Owens and Kenta against Hikuleo and ELP. We'll see a special singles match that I cannot wait for to see again. It's Zack Sabre Jr. against Bryan Danielson. Yes, please, give me more. And then the steel cage match of the United Empire against the War Dogs. So then we're back February 23rd and 24th. 2 shows in Sapporo. That's going to be Tanahashi versus Riddle on the 23rd for the TV title. Nick Nemeth in one of his first match, I believe, with David Finlay there for the global title. Mm-hmm. And then on the 24th in Sapporo, singles match series with LIJ going against just 5 guys in a series of singles matches. So Hiromu versus Doki, Taka versus Bushi, Uemura versus Tsuji, Shingo versus Taichi, and then the IWGP World Heavyweight title match of Sonata versus Naito for the main event.
It's kind of funny. We have the 20th, 23rd, and 24th, and then we basically go quiet for a week and a half, and then it's the 11th, and then we got all the Fantasticamania shows that are coming up.
And we're going to talk about those in a second.
Yeah. And then we're going to have the 23rd and 24th, and then it's just full steam ahead into the Cup.
Sharks just says, I can't recall being this excited for New Beginning in Osaka. It looks like a terrific card. And then Venkin says, it'll be funny with Shota getting attacked by Perry after the Ren match. The guy cannot catch a break. And he said, and Shark says, and the matches on top aren't even title matches. Yeah, but there are matches that we're fascinated by. And the Fantasticamania tour, we've got some information about this. So first of all, Kamai Itachi is going to be making a return, for the love of God. That was Hiromu Takahashi's CMLL excursion gimmick. Kamai Itachi. We talked a little bit about that when Scott Edwards was on the show. We talked about the history of Kamai Itachi. He's going to be part of Fantasticamania. Now, Hiromu lost his mask to Dragon Lee. So according to him, he can't be, and this is true in Mexico, it's not necessarily true in Japan, but he can't be Kamae Itachi again. He's been unmasked, can't go back under the gimmick. He said it's going to be second generation Kamae Itachi. Let's hope it is not Taguchi, but who knows? We'll see who that ends up being. We're going to have some women on the card for the first time. It is going to be Yuvia and La Jarochita. We'll be there against two mystery opponents who could be Stardom wrestlers, so that could be fun. But we don't know. They haven't announced. Mystery opponents for Yuvia and La Jarochita. Both are pretty good. Not quite on the level of Vaquer necessarily, but nobody else really is at the moment. But they're very good. This should be fun. We'll also see Rocky Romero versus Volador at Korakuen Hall. Soberano Jr. against Templario. And the second night at Korakuen Hall to end the thing will be Místico versus Ultimo Guerrero, which is a big match. Mascarada Dorada versus Stuka Jr. So a lot of really good stuff coming up, as well as that tag team tournament that you see there. That's a two-nighter. They'll have the semifinals on one night and then the third place match and the finals the second night. And so that's Titan and Bushi are the New Japan guys in that one. And then the rest are CMLL wrestlers. So a lot of good stuff to come.
I'm getting more excited for CMLL, especially since we're getting English translation this year. That's gonna make me that's gonna add to my anticipation and excitement for this. We're getting close to the end, but you got some Killer Kong stuff, right?
I do have some Killer Kong. So I want to talk about this guy because he's
we haven't had the chance.
No, we have not. No, and I do want to talk about this guy because basically the Great Okan does his gimmick. Let's just be that's how influential he is that there is a guy in major matches in New Japan that is basically doing this guy's gimmick. So Killer Khan was Masashi Ozawa, and he began his career in 1971 in the JWA, former sumo guy that came over to the pro ranks. First match we have a record of was on June 29th, 1971 against Osamu Kito. You remember Kito just passed away not too long ago. Kito Clutch guy. So both those two are tied together a little bit. And he was with the JWA, and he stayed with the JWA through 1972. So the first year of New Japan, he actually stayed in the Japanese Wrestling Association, which was kind of dying off. But he followed Inoki to New Japan after that. March 30th, 1973 is when he came to New Japan. He began traveling in 1977, and Carl Gotch gave him the Killer Khan gimmick in 1979. I'm going to lose my voice here for just a moment. Be right back.
Sure. You got this. Venkin, the CMLL tour is from February 12th to February 18th. It will be 6 days, and then they are going to jump right back into the New Beginning tour.
Yep. Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
Some of the allergens getting to me here a little bit. So he began traveling, and Carl Gotch gave him the Killer Khan gimmick in 1979. Once he came to the United States, he started working in Florida, Georgia, Mid-South, WWF, a little bit in Mexico. He was really tall, and he could move well. And so he was an interesting big man for the time, who were usually either huge and immobile, or you didn't get a lot of real agile big guys, but he was, and he could move. He was always pushed as a heel. There in his time in the United States, there really isn't a point where Killer Khan is on before intermission or anything like this. Guy was a pushed heel, usually given a manager to speak for him. Freddie Blassie, the Great Mephisto, some of the best talkers of their time were managers for him, and he was animated on his interviews. Instead of just kind of standing there looking menacing, he would make all kinds of noises. He would move around the interview set, and he would growl and spit and all this kind of. He was animated, but his most famous opponent was Andre the Giant. They first met doing handicap matches back in 1974 in Japan, where he was just jobbing for Andre right there. Some in Georgia, but in April of 1981, fate intervened on behalf of Mr. Ozawa because Andre injured himself away from the ring. Did not happen during a match. Some say he got out of bed, broke his ankle, kind of getting out of bed because his body was just so awkward and there's a lot of stress on his joints. But Khan was a top heel in WWF, but he had done his run with Bob Backlund already, where he challenged Backlund for the title and had a series of matches in the big towns and eventually lost around the horn to Backlund, right? So WWF, usual pattern, the heel gets the best of the champion but doesn't win the title. Then there's a rematch. Then there's a third match, where the 2 out of 3 where the champion runs off the heel finally. He had done that. It was about the time when heels start to work their way back down the card, or they get into a feud with Pedro Morales or Pat Patterson, but they had something else in mind for Khan. Andre was injured for a few weeks. They decided to tell the fans that Andre was injured in a match with Killer Khan. There was a match, apparently, with Khan and Andre the Giant in Rochester, New York, but Andre had wrestled for weeks after it. But they just decided that's the day when it happened. That's when it happened. And they said that he jumped off the second rope, came down with a knee drop. Flying knee drop was his finishing move, and broke Andre's ankle. It didn't happen, but that's what they told everybody. This ended up being a monster angle that never actually took place, because once Andre came back, this match, Jeremy, was huge, and it went all through the major arenas. This was a big hit, and they did do one angle when Andre was on crutches, where Khan and Fred Blassie came out and kicked away the crutches and knocked down Andre. And Vince McMahon, doing his best Howard Cosell impression back then as the announcer, was like, "Good Lord Almighty, how could you possibly?" It was oversold it perfectly. And so what they did was they went around all the big towns, New York, Philadelphia, Boston, all of them, and did a series of matches. Again, a disputed finish where Andre would be so mad at him for breaking his ankle that he'd go nuts and get disqualified, or they'd get double counted out or something like that. They would bring it back. It would sell out again. So they would do that again. And then the third time around, they would do a Mongolian stretcher match. And this is the match where you have to lay your opponent out and he has to be carried all the way out on a stretcher. And that would be, of course, the one that Andre won.
So it's a stretcher match, not
stretcher match. Yeah,
but it's called a Mongolian stretcher match because that's what you do. Got it.
Well, because he was from Mongolia, allegedly.
Right.
Yeah, so he was billed as being from Mongolia. So it was a Mongolian stretcher match. So this was a big enough deal, Jeremy, that it was a feud that was unique in this way. The idea that somebody injured Andre the Giant was such a great angle that other territories would bring in the match as a special attraction instead of just Andre. So it could draw anywhere. They would just come in and say, Andre the Giant is going to face the guy who broke his ankle. And it would sell tickets. So here are the number of places. Remember, this is a WWF angle. It happened on WWF TV, the crutches thing. And the main angle never happened at all. But this match was huge in Montreal, Toronto for Frank Tunney, who was booking Mid-Atlantic wrestlers at the time. So there would be a match. The Killer Khan versus Andre the Giant would be next to a Bob Backlund WWF title defense one night. Then they'd go to Toronto and work next to Ric Flair versus Harley Race for the NWA title the next night. It went to the LaBelle, Los Angeles territory, Mid-South Wrestling, all the way down there. The word got out. It went to Houston for Paul Bosch. It went all over the world. They brought it to Japan eventually. It was the 1981 Observer Feud of the Year. So that was how well that went. And the key is Khan could get good matches out of Andre. Not everybody did. And not everybody needed to, right? Andre was mostly just an attraction. You just went to see him. But they worked well together. Their matches were kind of exciting. They were good brawls. And, Andre would bleed for him sometimes, especially in the stretcher matches. Andre would bleed, and there would be these titanic struggles between these two huge guys. And Venkin's asking who won the stretcher match. Andre always won the stretcher match. The bread was buttered there. So in the end, in the blow-off of these series, and just about all those territories I mentioned, there would be a 2 or a 3 match series between the two. One where they would go to some disputed finish, then they bring it back for the stretcher match, and Andre would always vanquish him in the stretcher match. They brought that match to Japan, though, and it was they met a bunch of times there. In 1982, it was the final of the MSG League, which was that era's G1 tournament. So the finals of the G League that year was Killer Khan versus Andre the Giant. It was one of the biggest matches in all of professional wrestling. You could take it anywhere in the world and sell tickets. And that one, Inoki was injured also, and he was unable to go to the finals. So they put the next biggest match they could come up with that didn't involve Inoki. After that, he was a made man. So he was one of the top guys in New Japan from 1982 and 1983. But he did so well in the U.S. and made so much money that he went back. In 1984, he was back in the U.S. working for Stampede, Central States. He had a long run in world-class wrestling for the Von Erichs, Mid-South also. He ended up a little bit like Andre. When you look back at his history and his title, he didn't hold a lot of belts. but he didn't need to. He was a draw without the title belts. So while he didn't hold a lot of championships, he was almost always the top guy everywhere he went. He moved over to All Japan in 1985, and he was in with all their top guys like Baba, Saruta, Tenryu, Choshu. Killer Khan was right in there with them. Final run of his career was in 1987. He went back to the WWF, and that's when I saw him personally. I saw him in South Bend, Indiana, and Notre Dame, wrestling Hillbilly Jim and chasing around Little Beaver, if you remember the midget that was with Hillbilly Jim at the time. And Little Beaver had 100 different ways to almost get caught by Killer Khan, but not quite. But that's where I did get to see Killer Khan. He won that match. He challenged Hulk Hogan for the title in several of the major cities. Go to New York, Chicago, LA. By then they were nationwide, and so he challenged Hulk Hogan in all the major markets, and he would beat everyone else except for top guys like Randy Savage, Bam Bam Bigelow, who was getting a big push in 1987. You remember going up to the first Survivor Series. A couple others like Junkyard Dog got some wins over him, but he mostly mowed down everybody except the very, very top guy. And that seemed to be when he realized that was his top run, because he had that time in WWF, and then he went back to Japan and quit wrestling. That was the end of Killer Khan in the ring, really. And he opened up a series of bars and restaurants, which is what he did the rest of his life. And it wasn't just a thing where it was a celebrity restaurant. If you went in, there's photos. It cracks me up. If you go to like the review sites of Killer Khan's restaurant, and you know how they have the little photo section where there's photos of the interior of the restaurant. Mm-hmm. Killer Khan is almost always sitting at the counter operating the cash register.
Awesome.
Right? So if you went in there, he might take your order. He might give you the change from your check and all that stuff. And of course,
it's like when Kingston was at the restaurant.
Yeah. Well, Kawada actually cooks.
Yeah.
I don't know if he cooked, but that was the thing. So he passed away in his. He passed away on the way to the hospital. He had a heart attack right there in his restaurant, working there in Tokyo. And I'll tell you what, Jeremy, one of those carpe diem moments. I just didn't get to that on my Tokyo list when I was there.
Right.
It was on it. Bull Nakano closed her bar like 6 months before I went to Japan. I should have gone to Killer Khan's restaurant and met Killer Khan. I didn't get to do it. So next time I'm in Japan, I am getting some ramen from Toshiaki Kawada, whether I get to meet him or not. But
yes,
I'm doing
you should.
Yeah. So there you have it. So there's a little bit about Killer Khan, somebody who kind of in the right place at the right time, but always a really good big man, an exciting big guy worker who could wrestle, and then ended up in the right place at the right time. One of the legendary feuds in that era of wrestling, and then a big star in Japan on the way back. So Ozawa passed away just a few weeks ago. So worth mentioning, and a big part of New Japan history there.
Yeah, I didn't know much about him, and so I was like, the floor is yours to pass on the gospel of the Killer Khan, and I'm glad you did, because, this is the lineage of what New Japan is built off of, and it helps me become more educated moving forward.
Yeah. Hey, Shark said, pretty interesting career. Absolutely. The man saw the world. The man absolutely saw the world and was a main event star just about everywhere he went from 1981 on. All right.
So anything else for us this weekend? Anything else for us?
We have the New Beginning show on Saturday, and then the 2 Korakuen Hall shows. We'll be talking about those. And of course, as the tour continues, we'll discuss that and its development. So when you come back here next week, we will cover New Beginning in Nagoya. That'll be the most important thing. The Korakuen Hall shows. And we'll look forward from there as all these storylines, feuds, and twists and turns and contract situations become a little bit more clear moving forward. We'll be here every single week to tell you all about them.
I got one more little Easter egg for you, Steven.
Absolutely.
We celebrated your birthday before you left, and I wanted to let you know that my wife was very kind, and she set up a birthday dinner for us. That was the wild card weekend. Got my friends Brian and Elisa, John LaRocca and his wife, Miguel and Denise. We got Garrett, my lovely wife Savannah, and then Dave, Meltzer, and Mita. So,
that's brilliant.
That's very brilliant. Shout out my wife for putting that together. Birthdays are not always my favorite thing, but she managed to make it really memorable. And I wanted to share that with people who managed to stick around for an entire 1 hour and 50 minutes for us.
USVA guys, thank you to everyone who attended and watched Battle of the Value on pay-per-view. New Japan appreciates your support. Jeremy, it was great to meet you too. Yes.
Great to meet you too, Esteban.
I got a question. John LaRocca's wife is the one that does Jeff Cobb's hair, right?
And my wife's hair as well.
See, that's it. She's very good. If you're in that area, that's the person to go to, right? I mean, you can't get much better.
Hair by Katrina.
Hair by Katrina. She takes care of Jeff Cobb. She can certainly take care of yours. So
I still have loyalty to my hairstylist for the last 10 years over a couple towns over, but I need a visit pretty soon.
There you go. Should we wrap this one up, sir?
Do it. Take a call, buddy.
For Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate your time. And next week, we'll be back with more. So we will talk to you again very soon.